Mason Teller knew exactly what his wife was doing the moment she started humming in the shower. Danielle hadn't hummed in 3 years of marriage, not once. But there she was, 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, scrubbing herself clean with the expensive soap she'd bought for special occasions, and making sounds like a woman who just discovered music. He sat on the edge of their bed, watching steam leak from under the bathroom door, and felt something cold settle in his chest. The kind of cold that comes right before you understand that everything you thought you knew was wrong. "You're up late," she called through the door, her voice bright and guilty. "Couldn't sleep," he said, which was true. Sleep had been impossible since she'd started working late, since she'd started caring about her appearance again, since she'd started lying about where she'd been. The shower shut off. Mason stared at the carpet between his feet, beige, practical, chosen by a man who believed in making safe choices. He'd chosen everything in their life the same way. Safe job fixing air conditioners, safe house in a safe neighborhood, safe wife who'd seemed content with safe. Danielle emerged wrapped in a towel, her skin flushed pink from the heat. She moved to the dresser and pulled out the black underwear set he'd bought her for their anniversary, the one she'd never worn. Not for him. "Going somewhere?" he asked. She froze for half a second, then forced a laugh. "Just felt like wearing something nice under my pajamas. Is that a crime?" Mason had been fixing things his whole life. Broken air conditioners, busted pipes, shattered windows. He knew the sound things made right before they fell apart completely. This was that sound. "No," he said quietly, "not a crime." She dressed quickly, avoiding his eyes in the mirror. When she climbed into bed, she stayed on her side, the mattress a continent between them. Mason lay awake until 3 a.m., listening to her breathe, wondering when she'd become a stranger. The next morning, Danielle left for work with a coffee mug she'd never used before, sleek, black, with "Live Your Truth" printed in gold letters. She'd bought it yesterday, along with the new perfume he could smell from across the kitchen. "Working late again tonight," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Third time this week. Frank's got us on this big project. You know how it is? Frank Malone, her boss, mid-level executive who'd hired her 6 months ago, who'd started calling the house asking for her on weekends." Mason nodded and kissed her forehead, tasting the lie on her skin. She pulled away too quickly, like his touch burned. After she left, he sat in their kitchen drinking coffee from his chipped mug and stared at the refrigerator. Their wedding photos smiled back at him in his rented tux, her in white, both of them young enough to believe in forever. He'd been 26 when they married. Quiet kid from a quiet family, the type who got picked on in school for reading during lunch. Danielle had been different then, or maybe she'd just been better at hiding who she really was. She'd seemed to like his steadiness, his reliability. She'd called him her rock, now she called him nothing at all. That evening, Mason drove to O'Malley's bar on 5th Street. Not because he drank, he didn't, not really, but because Danielle's location app showed her phone there. The same app she'd forgotten she'd shared with him 2 years ago when she'd gotten lost downtown. The bar was the kind of place that tried too hard to be authentic. Exposed brick, vintage beer signs, a bartender with sleeve tattoos, and a man bun who looked like he'd never done a day of real work in his life. Mason ordered a beer and found a corner booth where he could watch the crowd. He didn't have to wait long. Danielle walked in at 8:30, wearing the dress she'd claimed was too fancy for anywhere we go. She moved through the bar like she owned it, confident in a way she'd never been at home. Mason watched her approach the bar, watched the tattooed bartender's face light up when he saw her. The bartender, his name tag read J, leaned across the bar to kiss her. Not a friendly peck, a kiss that meant something. A kiss that said they'd done this before. Mason's beer turned to sawdust in his mouth. He watched his wife of 3 years slide onto a bar stool and let another man's hands rest on her waist. Watched her throw her head back and laugh at something Jay whispered in her ear. Watched her become someone he didn't recognize. A bouncer at the door, thick-necked guy with dead eyes, noticed Mason staring and nudged his partner. They both looked, then started laughing. Quiet, knowing laughter that said they'd seen this show before. Mason set down his beer and walked out. Behind him, he heard one of the bouncers say, "Poor bastard." They never see it coming. The drive home took forever. Mason gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white, trying to process what he'd seen. trying to understand when his wife had become someone who could look him in the eye and lie about working late while she was kissing another man. He was sitting on their couch when she came home at midnight, lipstick gone, hair slightly mussed, smelling like someone else's cologne. "How was work?" he asked. "Exhausting," she said, not missing a beat. "Frank had us going over numbers until 10. I grabbed a drink with Sarah afterward to decompress." Sarah, her coworker who'd been on vacation in Florida all week. Mason had seen the photos on Facebook. "That's nice," he said. "You deserve to have fun." She smiled, the first genuine smile she'd given him in weeks. "Thanks, baby. You're the best." She went to shower again, humming that same tune. Mason sat in the dark and felt something fundamental shift inside him. The quiet kid who'd taken beatings in school without fighting back, who'd swallowed every insult and slight for 31 years, was still there. But something new was growing beside him. Something that had teeth. The next morning, Danielle was different, distracted. She kept checking her phone and smiling at messages Mason couldn't see. When he asked who was texting, she said, "Just Sarah. She's having drama with her boyfriend." Sarah, who was single and had been for 2 years. "Want to do something this weekend?" Mason asked. "We could drive to the lake like we used to." Danielle's face fell. "I can't. Frank's having a team-building thing, mandatory attendance. On Saturday? You know how corporate is. They don't care about weekends." Mason nodded and finished his coffee. After she left, he called her office. The receptionist was happy to tell him that there was no team-building event scheduled, that Frank Malone was actually out of town visiting his daughter in college. That night, Mason created a new email account and started documenting everything. Screenshots of her location, photos of her outfits, a detailed log of every lie she'd told him in the past month. He told himself he was just being thorough, that he needed proof before he could confront her. But deep down, he knew he was planning something else entirely. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Mason was replacing a water heater in the basement when he heard Danielle on the phone upstairs. She was talking quietly, but the old house carried sound. "I can't keep doing this," she was saying. "Mason's getting suspicious." Mason froze, wrench in hand. "I know, baby. I know you don't want to hurt him, but he's not stupid. He's going to figure it out eventually." A long pause. Then, "What? No, I can't just leave him. It's not that simple. We have a house, shared accounts. And what would I tell my parents?" Another pause. Mason crept closer to the stairs. "Jay, listen to me. I need more time. Let me figure out how to do this without destroying everything. He's a good guy. He doesn't deserve to be humiliated." Mason's grip tightened on the wrench. A good guy. He doesn't deserve to be humiliated. Like she was doing him a favor by lying to his face every single day. "I love you too," she whispered. "But I can't just blow up my whole life overnight. Give me another month, please." Mason heard her footsteps moving toward the kitchen. He quickly went back to the water heater, but his hands were shaking too badly to work. He sat there in the basement, surrounded by tools and spare parts, and felt something inside him die. When Danielle came downstairs 10 minutes later, she found him sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. "You okay, baby?" she asked, her voice full of false concern. Mason looked up at her, really looked at her. Saw the guilt in her eyes, the way she held herself like she was ready to run. Saw the woman who'd promised to love him forever planning her exit strategy. "I'm fine," he said. "Just tired." She kissed the top of his head, and he smelled Jay's cologne in her hair. That night, Mason lay awake making plans. Not the kind of plans the old Mason would have made. Confrontation, tears, couples therapy. Different plans. The kind that required patience and precision. The kind that would make sure everyone understood exactly what they'd done. He thought about the bouncer's laughter at O'Malley's, about Jay's smug face when he'd kissed Mason's wife, about Danielle's voice on the phone, talking about him like he was a problem to be managed. Mason had spent his whole life being the good guy, the one who got stepped on, cheated on, laughed at. The one who always took the high road while everyone else took advantage of him. But good guys, he was learning, always finished last. And Mason Teller was tired of losing. The next morning, he started going to the gym. Not the fancy place where Danielle worked out, a rough, 24-hour joint near the industrial district where men with scarred knuckles taught you things they didn't teach in normal gyms. Mason told them he wanted to learn how to fight. They asked why. He told them he was tired of being pushed around. They understood. While Danielle was at work, which meant she was at Jay's apartment according to her phone's location, Mason was learning how to throw a punch without breaking his hand, how to take a hit without going down, how to make his body into something that could back up his words. The physical training was just the beginning. Mason spent hours online researching, learning about surveillance software, legal loopholes, financial manipulation. He discovered that their shared laptop had been logging Danielle's passwords for months, that their home router kept detailed records of every device that connected to it, that the law was surprisingly flexible when it came to monitoring your own property. He was building a case piece by piece, not for a lawyer, for something more personal. 3 weeks into his transformation, Mason got a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I know what she's doing to you. Coffee tomorrow? 2 p.m., grind coffee on Main Street. Come alone." R. Mason stared at the message, wondering who R was and how they'd gotten his number. He almost deleted it, almost ignored it like the old Mason would have. Instead, he typed back, "I'll be there." The next day, Mason arrived at Grind Coffee 10 minutes early. He ordered black coffee and found a table in the back where he could watch the door. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman walked in. Mid-30s, short black hair, wearing jeans and a leather jacket. She looked around the shop until she spotted him, then walked over. "Mason?" she asked. He nodded. She sat down across from him, studying his face. "I'm Rochelle Vale," she said. "Jay's ex-girlfriend. Well, one of them." Mason's coffee suddenly tasted like acid. "What do you want?" "To show you something." She pulled out her phone and swiped through her photos. "Jay's not as smart as he thinks he is. He keeps screenshots of everything. Trophies, I guess." She turned the phone toward him. Mason saw a text conversation between Jay and Danielle, messages that made his stomach turn. Jay: "Your husband called the bar looking for you. Told him you left with some girlfriends." Danielle: "Good save. He's getting suspicious, though. Keeps asking about my schedule." Jay: "Maybe it's time to put him out of his misery. Just leave him." Danielle: "I can't. Not yet. I need to figure out the money situation first. Plus, Mason's the type who might do something stupid if I just disappear." Jay: "Like what?" "The guy's a pushover. I met him at the gas station last week. Couldn't even look me in the eye." Danielle: "Still, I need to be careful. He's not as weak as he looks." Mason's hands were shaking as he read. Rochelle swiped to the next screenshot. Jay: "Found out more about your husband. Dude's got some serious issues, depression, anxiety, the whole thing. His buddy at the gym told me he's been getting bullied his whole life." Danielle: "That's actually sad. I feel bad for him." Jay: "Not bad enough to stop ducking me, though, right?" Danielle: "God, you're terrible. But no, not bad enough for that." Mason set the phone down carefully. His vision was going red around the edges. "There's more," Rochelle said quietly. "But I thought you should see these first. Why are you showing me this?" "Because Jay did the same thing to me. Different girl, same playbook. He likes married women. Says they're easier because they can't make scenes." She paused. "And because I think you deserve to know who you're really married to?" Mason looked at her for a long moment. "What do you want in return?" "I want to watch him burn," she said simply. "Both of them. But I can't do it alone. I need someone with access to their lives, someone they trust. They don't trust me. No, but they underestimate you. That's almost better." Mason finished his coffee, thinking. The old Mason would have walked away, would have confronted Danielle directly, demanded counseling, tried to save their marriage. But the old Mason was gone, had been dying a slow death for months. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. Rochelle smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I have a plan, but it's going to require you to be someone you've never been before. Can you do that?" Mason thought about the bouncer's laughter, about Jay's smug face, about Danielle calling him a good guy while she planned to leave him. "Yeah," he said, "I can do that." Over the next hour, Rochelle laid out her plan. It was elegant in its simplicity, brutal in its effectiveness. It would destroy Jay's reputation, end his relationship with Danielle, and make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they were dealing with. "The beauty of it," Rochelle explained, "is that we don't have to break any laws. We just have to let them destroy themselves." Mason listened, asked questions, made suggestions. By the time they finished, he felt like a different person. Someone who could look at a problem and solve it without worrying about being nice. Someone who could plan 10 moves ahead while smiling to your face. Someone who could win. That night, Mason came home to find Danielle cooking dinner. She was wearing his favorite dress, the blue one that brought out her eyes, and she'd made his favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. She even had candles lit. "What's the occasion?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Do I need an occasion to cook for my husband?" she said, kissing his cheek. "I just felt like we haven't spent enough time together lately." Mason sat down at the table, watching her serve the food. She was trying too hard, moving too quickly, talking too much. Something had spooked her. "How was work?" he asked. "Good. Busy. Frank's really pushing this new project." She sat down across from him, not touching her food. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." Here it comes, Mason thought. "What's up?" I think maybe we should try for a baby." Mason's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "A baby? I know we talked about waiting, but I'm 31. My clock is ticking, and I think it might be good for us. Give us something to focus on together." Mason chewed slowly, processing. A baby. She wanted to have a baby while she was screwing another man. The audacity of it was almost impressive. "That's a big decision," he said carefully. "I know, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I want to start trying." "Like, now?" She reached across the table and took his hand. Her palm was sweaty. "What brought this on?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe it's seeing Sarah with her boyfriend. Maybe it's just feeling like something's missing." She squeezed his hand. "I love you, Mason. I want to build a life with you. A real life." Mason looked into her eyes and saw the lie there, saw the panic underneath. Something had changed. Something had made her want to lock him down, make him believe they had a future. "Okay," he said. "Let's try." Her smile was so bright it could have powered the house. "Really? Really?" She jumped up and hugged him, pressing her face into his neck. Mason held her, smelling Jay's cologne in her hair, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. She was exactly where he needed her. After dinner, they went to bed early. Danielle was aggressive in a way. She hadn't been in months, like she was trying to prove something. Mason played along, letting her believe she was fooling him, letting her think she was winning. Afterward, while she slept, Mason lay awake planning. Tomorrow, he would start phase 2, the part where everything began to fall apart. But tonight, he held his wife close and listened to her breathe, memorizing the sound, because soon she would be someone else's problem. And Mason Teller would finally be free. The next morning, Mason woke up to find Danielle gone. Not unusual. She'd been leaving early for work most days, but this time she'd left a note. "Gone to doctor's appointment. Talk tonight. Love you." Doctor's appointment. Mason checked their insurance website. No appointments scheduled. No claims filed. He called her office. She'd called in sick. Mason smiled to himself. The lies were getting lazier. She was slipping. He spent the morning at the gym, working with Tommy, a retired boxer who'd taken Mason under his wing. Tommy was teaching him more than just fighting. He was teaching him confidence, how to carry himself, how to look at a man and let him know, without words, that he wasn't someone to be messed with. "You're different," Tommy said, watching Mason work the heavy bag. "First time you came in here, you looked like a victim. Now you look like someone who could be dangerous." "Good," Mason said, throwing a combination that would have knocked out the old version of himself. "Just remember," Tommy said, "knowing how to fight and needing to fight are two different things. Don't go looking for trouble." Mason stopped hitting the bag. "What if trouble's already found me?" Tommy studied him for a long moment. "Then you handle it, but you handle it smart. Guys like you, guys who've been pushed around their whole lives, sometimes they go too far when they finally push back. Don't be that guy." Mason nodded, but he was thinking about Danielle's lies, about Jay's smug face, about the bouncer's laughter. Maybe going too far was exactly what the situation called for. That afternoon, Mason drove to O'Malley's, not to drink, to watch. He parked across the street and waited. At 2:30, Danielle's car pulled up. She got out, checked her reflection in the window, and walked inside. Mason followed 10 minutes later. He found her at the bar talking to Jay. They were sitting close, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing about something. Mason ordered a beer and found a table where he could observe. He watched Jay lean over and whisper something in Danielle's ear, watched her face flush, watched her look around the bar to make sure no one was watching, then kiss him quickly. Mason pulled out his phone and started recording. After 20 minutes, they left together. Mason followed them to a motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. He watched them go into room 237, then drove home. That evening, Danielle came home with a story about being at her sister's house, her sister who lived in California and hadn't visited in 2 years. She was getting careless, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing his cheek. "Good," Mason said. "Productive." She went to shower, again, while Mason uploaded the video to his computer. He now had hours of footage, dozens of screenshots, and a detailed timeline of their affair. More than enough to destroy both their reputations. But he wasn't ready to pull the trigger yet. He wanted them to get comfortable. Wanted them to make bigger mistakes. The next week, Mason put phase 2 into action. He started small, canceling Danielle's gym membership, changing the password on their Netflix account, moving money from their joint account to his personal savings. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make her life slightly more difficult. At the same time, he began spreading seeds of doubt about Jay. Mason had done his research. Jay had a history of stealing from employers, sleeping with customers' wives, and generally being a scumbag. It hadn't been hard to find people who'd been burned by him. Mason reached out to Jay's boss at O'Malley's. Mentioned casually that he'd heard Jay was skimming from the register, provided just enough detail to make it believable. Then he sat back and watched. Within a week, Jay was working shorter shifts, being watched more closely, getting written up for minor infractions. The pressure was building. Meanwhile, Danielle was getting more anxious. The small inconveniences were adding up. Her card getting declined at the grocery store. Her favorite TV shows disappearing from their queue. The locks on their house mysteriously not working with her key. "I think someone's messing with our accounts," she told Mason one evening. "Really? That's weird." "Everything's been working fine for me. Maybe we should change our passwords." "Good idea. I'll take care of it." Mason changed the passwords, all right? He changed them all to variations of Cheater 123 and Liar 456. Danielle never noticed. She was too distracted by her affair to pay attention to the details. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later. Mason was having coffee with Rochelle when she showed him a new set of screenshots. "Jay's getting desperate," she said. "Look at this." The messages were from the night before. Jay: "I need money. Like, now. My boss is breathing down my neck about the register." Danielle: "How much?" Jay: $5,000. "Just until I can get another job." Danielle: "I can't just take that from our account. Mason will notice." Jay: "Then leave him already. We've been planning this for months." Danielle: "It's not that simple. He's been acting weird lately." Asking questions. Jay: "So what? Guy's a loser. What's he gonna do, cry at you?" Danielle: "You don't know him like I do. He's not as weak as he looks." Jay: "Baby, I've met him. Trust me, he's exactly as weak as he looks." Mason felt that familiar coldness settle in his chest. "When did Jay meet me?" 2 weeks ago, Rochelle said. "At the gas station on Pine Street. You were getting coffee." Mason remembered. A guy in a leather jacket had bumped into him at the counter, had apologized, called him bro, even helped him pick up his change when he'd dropped it. Mason had thought he was just being friendly. "He was studying you," Rochelle continued. "Sizing you up, making sure you weren't a threat. And what did he conclude? That you were a pushover. That Danielle could walk all over you and you'd never do anything about it." Mason stared at the phone, feeling something dark and hungry growing in his chest. "What else?" Rochelle swiped to the next screenshot. Jay: "I'm telling you, the guy's a joke. You know what he said when I bumped into him? 'Sorry, my fault. I knocked into him and he apologized. That's your husband.'" Danielle: "Still, I need to be careful." Jay: "Or you could just grow a pair and tell him you're leaving. What's the worst that could happen?" Danielle: "You don't understand. Mason's the type who might do something stupid if he gets cornered." Jay: "Like what? Challenge me to a fight? I'd break him in half." Mason looked up at Rochelle. "I want to make him eat those words." "Careful," she said. "That's exactly what he's expecting. Some dramatic confrontation where he gets to prove how tough he is. Then what? We let him destroy himself. Jay's got a temper. All we have to do is push the right buttons." Over the next hour, they refined their plan. It was risky, but it would work. And when it was over, everyone would know exactly what Jay Knox was made of. That night, Mason came home to find Danielle on the couch, crying. Real tears, not the fake ones she'd been using lately. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I think I made a mistake," she said, not looking at him. Mason's heart stopped. "What kind of mistake?" I've been seeing someone else." There it was. The moment he'd been preparing for. Mason felt strangely calm. "Who?" he asked. "A guy from work. Well, not work exactly. Someone I met through Frank." She was still crying, mascara running down her cheeks. "It just happened. I didn't plan it." "How long?" 3 months, maybe 4. "I don't know. Time got away from me." Mason processed this. She was lying about the timeline. It had been closer to 6 months, but she was telling the truth about not planning it. Danielle was many things, but she wasn't a strategic thinker. "Do you love him?" he asked. "I thought I did. But now I'm not sure. He's different than I thought he was." "Different how?" "He's pushy, demanding. He wants me to leave you, but he doesn't understand that it's not that simple." "We have a life together, a house, plans." Mason almost laughed. Plans, like the baby they'd talked about, like the future she'd been pretending to want while she was screwing another man. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to end it. With him. I want to try to fix things with us." She finally looked at him, eyes red and desperate. "Can you forgive me?" Mason looked at his wife, really looked at her. Saw the fear in her eyes, the guilt, the hope that he would be the same pushover he'd always been, that he would forgive her, take her back, pretend it never happened. "I need time to think," he said. "How much time?" "I don't know. This is big, Danielle. You're asking me to forgive you for cheating on me for months, for lying to my face every single day, for making me feel like I was going crazy. I know I messed up, but I love you. I've always loved you." Mason stood up. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." "Mason, please." "Tomorrow," he said firmly. "I need space to process this." He packed a bag while she watched from the bedroom doorway. As he was leaving, she grabbed his arm. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make this right." Mason looked down at her hand on his arm. "I'll call you tomorrow." He drove to a hotel across town, checked in, and immediately called Rochelle. "She confessed," he said. "How much?" "Enough. She's scared. I think Jay's pressuring her to leave me." "Perfect. That means he's getting desperate. Ready for phase 3? Mason looked out the hotel window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Jay was probably celebrating, thinking he'd won, thinking he'd stolen another man's wife without consequences. "Yeah," Mason said, "I'm ready." The next morning, Mason didn't call Danielle. He went to the gym instead, worked out harder than ever before, then drove to O'Malley's. He arrived just as Jay was starting his shift. Jay looked surprised to see him. "Hey, bro, didn't expect to see you here." "We need to talk," Mason said. Jay's face went carefully neutral. "About what?" "About my wife." The bar wasn't crowded yet, just a few regulars nursing beers and watching sports. Jay glanced around, then gestured toward the back. "Let's go outside," he said. They walked through the back door into the alley behind the bar. Jay lit a cigarette, his hand steady. Mason had to admire his composure. "So," Jay said, "I'm guessing she told you." "She told me enough." "Look, man, I'm not going to apologize. These things happen. But I will say this, she came to me, not the other way around." Mason felt his new muscles tense. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you understand that this isn't personal. Your wife was unhappy. I was available. Basic biology." "Basic biology," Mason repeated. "Yeah, don't take it so hard. Happens to guys like you all the time." "Guys like me?" Jay took a long drag from his cigarette. "Come on, bro, you know what I mean. Nice guys. Guys who play it safe. Women get bored. They need excitement, adventure. They need to feel alive. And you made her feel alive. I made her feel like a woman. When's the last time you did that?" Mason stepped closer. Jay didn't back down, but Mason could see the calculation in his eyes. The bartender was bigger, probably stronger, definitely more experienced in bar fights. But he was also overconfident. "I want you to stay away from her." Mason said. Jay laughed. Or what? You'll beat me up? Dude, look at yourself. You're what, 5'10", 160? I've bounced guys twice your size. I'm not here to fight you. Then what are you here for? Mason smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. To give you a chance to do the right thing. The right thing? Jay flicked his cigarette into the dumpster. The right thing is for you to accept that your wife doesn't want you anymore. The right thing is for you to man up and let her go. She's not leaving me. She will. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she will. Because she's seen what it's like to be with a real man. And once they see that, they never go back. Mason felt something shift inside him. The last piece of his old self, the part that still believed in being reasonable, in taking the high road, in turning the other cheek, died a quiet death. You know what? He said. You're right. She probably will leave me, but first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man she's leaving me for. Jay's confident smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the money you've been stealing from the register. I know about the 3 other married women you've been sleeping with. I know about the warrant in Ohio. Now, Jay looked genuinely worried. You don't know crap. I know enough, and by tomorrow, so will everyone else. Mason turned to walk away. Jay grabbed his shoulder. Hey, Jay said, you threatening me? Mason looked down at the hand on his shoulder, then up at Jay's face. I'm promising you. Jay's grip tightened. You little... Mason moved faster than Jay expected. 3 months of training with Tommy had taught him more than just how to throw a punch. He'd learned how to read an opponent, how to use leverage, how to turn someone's aggression against them. Jay's grip gave him all the leverage he needed. Mason grabbed Jay's wrist, twisted it away from his shoulder, and stepped into him at the same time. Jay, off balance and surprised, stumbled forward. Mason brought his knee up hard, connecting with Jay's solar plexus. Jay doubled over, gasping. Mason grabbed the back of his head and brought it down to meet his rising knee. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make a point. Jay collapsed to his knees, blood streaming from his nose. Next time, Mason said quietly, keep your hands to yourself. He walked away, leaving Jay in the alley, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Powerful. That afternoon, Mason called Danielle. I've been thinking about what you said, he told her. About fixing things. And her voice was hopeful. I want to try, but I need to know it's over with him. Completely over. It is. I swear to you, it's over. Good, because I have a plan. Something that will help us move forward. What kind of plan? Meet me at Rossetti's tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll talk about it then. Rossetti's was the restaurant where they'd had their first date. Danielle would see it as romantic, symbolic. She wouldn't see it as the perfect public place for what Mason had in mind. Okay, she said. I'll see you there. Mason hung up and called Rochelle. Tonight's the night. You sure you're ready for this? More than ready. That evening, Mason arrived at Rossetti's early. He'd showered, shaved, put on his best suit. He looked like a man who was trying to save his marriage. The maitre d' seated him at a corner table with a good view of the entrance. Danielle arrived 10 minutes late, wearing the red dress she'd worn to their anniversary dinner last year. She looked beautiful, nervous, hopeful. Mason stood up to greet her, pulled out her chair, ordered wine, played the part of the loving husband perfectly. You look amazing, he said. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. She smiled, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. So what did you want to talk about? Us, our future, what we're going to do about this situation. I told you, it's over with him. I want to make things work with us. Mason nodded, swirling his wine. I believe you. But I need to know that you understand what this means, what you're giving up. I'm not giving up anything important. Really? Because from what I hear, you were pretty serious about him. Danielle's face went pale. What do you mean, from what you hear? Mason pulled out his phone and set it on the table between them. I mean, I know about the motel, about the money you've been hiding, about the plans you two made. Mason, I know about the baby conversation, how you were going to use a pregnancy to keep me from asking questions while you figured out how to leave me. Danielle's hands were shaking. How do you... I know everything, Danielle. Everything. She looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware that other people could hear them. Can we not do this here? Where would you prefer? Your boyfriend's apartment? Oh, wait, he doesn't have one anymore. Got evicted last week. Danielle stared at him. What are you talking about? Jay's been having some problems lately. Lost his job at O'Malley's. Something about stealing from the register. His landlord found out about the warrant in Ohio. Amazing how these things have a way of catching up with you. You did this. I didn't do anything. I just made sure the right people had the right information. Danielle's shock was giving way to anger. You bastard. You destroyed his life. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. He needed that job. He should have thought about that before he decided to screw another man's wife. Danielle stood up abruptly. I'm leaving. Sit down. Something in Mason's voice made her freeze. It wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive, but it carried an authority she'd never heard from him before. Sit down. She sat. We're not done talking, Mason said. In fact, we're just getting started. He picked up his phone and tapped the screen. A video started playing. Danielle could see herself walking into the motel with Jay. The timestamp showed it was from 2 weeks ago. Turn it off, she whispered. This is just the highlight reel. I have hours of footage, photos, screenshots of your text messages, a complete timeline of your affair. Danielle looked around the restaurant again. An older couple at the next table was trying not to stare. The waiter was hovering nearby, sensing tension. What do you want? She asked. I want you to understand something. For the past 6 months, you've been treating me like I'm stupid, like I don't know what's going on. Like I'm some pathetic loser who deserves to be cheated on. That's not... But here's the thing, Danielle, I'm not stupid, and I'm not pathetic. And I'm definitely not the same man you married. Mason leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I know about the pregnancy test you faked. I know about the credit card you opened in my name. I know about the second phone you've been hiding in your gym bag. Danielle's face went white. How? Because I've been watching, learning, planning. While you thought you were playing me, I was playing a much bigger game. What game? Mason smiled. The one where you lose everything. He stood up, threw a 20 on the table, and walked away. Behind him, he heard Danielle calling his name, but he didn't turn around. Phase 3 was complete. The next morning, Mason woke up in his hotel room to 17 missed calls from Danielle. He ignored them all and drove to the gym. Tommy was waiting for him. You look different, Tommy said. Good, different. Like you handled your business. I'm handling it, Mason said. Just remember what I told you. Don't go too far. I won't. But as Mason worked the heavy bag, he wasn't sure that was true. The old Mason, the one who would have stopped here, who would have been satisfied with confronting his cheating wife and ruining her boyfriend, was gone. The new Mason wanted more. That afternoon, Mason met Rochelle at a coffee shop across town. How did she take it? Rochelle asked. About as well as expected. She's scared. Good. Scared people make mistakes. What about Jay? He's been calling me nonstop since he got fired, wants to know if I had anything to do with it. And? I told him maybe he should ask your wife's husband. Mason laughed. How'd he react to that? About how you'd expect. Lots of tough guy talk, threats, promises of what he's going to do when he finds you. He knows where I live. That's what I'm counting on. They spent the next hour going over the final phase of their plan. It was risky. It required Jay to do exactly what they expected him to do. But Mason was confident. He'd studied Jay for months. He knew how the man thought. That evening, Mason drove home for the first time in 3 days. Danielle's car was in the driveway. The lights were on. She was waiting for him. He found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She looked like she hadn't slept. We need to talk, she said. I think we've talked enough. Mason, please, I know you're angry. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Mason poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. How? We can go to counseling. I can change jobs, move away from all this. We can start over. Start over, Mason repeated. Just like that. I know it won't be easy. I know it'll take time to rebuild trust. But we can do it. We love each other. Mason looked at his wife, really looked at her. Saw the desperation in her eyes, the way she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. 3 days ago, he might have felt sorry for her. Do you know what the worst part is? He asked. What? It's not the cheating. It's not even the lying. It's the way you looked at me while you were doing it. Like I was nothing. Like I was so beneath your notice that you didn't even have to be careful. That's not true. You called me a good guy while you were planning to leave me. You talked about not wanting to humiliate me while you were screwing another man in a motel room. You discussed my mental health with your boyfriend like I was a problem to be managed. Danielle's face crumpled. How do you know about? I know everything, Danielle. I know things you've forgotten you said. I know things you didn't think anyone would ever find out. Mason, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. And now we have to deal with the consequences. What consequences? Mason set down his water glass. I want a divorce. The words hit Danielle like a physical blow. No, we can fix this. I told you, I'll do anything. It's too late. It's not too late. People work through this kind of thing all the time. Maybe, but I don't want to work through it. I don't want to spend the next 10 years wondering if you're lying to me. I don't want to have to check your phone and track your location and worry every time you're 5 minutes late. You won't have to. I'll be completely transparent. You can have all my passwords. Check my phone whenever you want. I don't want that life, Danielle. I don't want to be the kind of man who has to spy on his wife to feel secure. Danielle was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Please don't do this. I love you. You love the idea of me. You love having someone safe to come home to, but you don't love me. That's not true. Then why did you cheat? I don't know. I was bored. I was stupid. I made a mistake for 6 months. Yes, for 6 months I made the same mistake over and over again, but it's over now. It's done. Mason walked over to the table and sat down across from her. No, it's not done. It's just getting started. What do you mean? I mean, Jay's not going to just disappear. He's going to want you back. And when he finds out you're trying to save your marriage, he's going to get angry. I can handle Jay. Can you? Because from what I've seen, he's not the type to take rejection well. Danielle wiped her eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying you better hope he doesn't show up here tonight. Because if he does, things are going to get very ugly very quickly. As if on cue, there was a loud bang from the front door. Not a knock, the sound of someone kicking it. Danielle jumped. What was that? Another bang. Then Jay's voice, slurred and angry. Open the ducking door, Danielle! Oh, God, Danielle whispered. He's drunk. Mason stood up calmly. Stay here. Mason, don't. He's dangerous when he's like this. I'm counting on it. Mason walked to the front door. Through the peephole, he could see Jay swaying on the porch, a bottle of beer in his hand. His face was a mess, nose swollen from their encounter in the alley, eyes bloodshot from drinking. I know you're in there, Jay shouted. Both of you, come out here and face me like a man. Mason unlocked the door and opened it. Jay stumbled backwards, surprised. There you are, Jay slurred. The cuck himself. You're drunk, Mason said. Go home. I don't have a home anymore, thanks to you. Lost my job, lost my apartment. All because you couldn't handle your wife getting some real Johnson. Danielle doesn't want to see you. Jay laughed bitterly. That's not what she was saying yesterday. Yesterday, she was begging me to run away with her. Mason felt Danielle appear behind him. That's not true, she said. Oh, it's not. Jay pulled out his phone and started scrolling through messages. Want me to read them out loud? I can't stand living with him anymore. He makes my skin crawl. I dream about leaving with you every night. Danielle's face went pale. I never said that. From 3 days ago. Want to see the screenshot? Mason held out his hand. Let me see the phone. Duck you. Give me the phone, Jay. Or what? You'll hit me again? Go ahead. I'm not some distracted idiot in an alley this time. Jay dropped his beer bottle, letting it shatter on the porch, and squared up. Mason could smell the alcohol on his breath, see the rage in his eyes. This was exactly what he'd been hoping for. You think you're tough now? Jay said. Think hitting me once makes you a man? I've been fighting since I was 12. I'll break you in half. Probably, Mason agreed. But you're drunk, and you're on my property, and you're threatening my wife. Your wife? She's not your wife anymore. She's mine. Has been for months. Jay, stop, Danielle said. Just go. Please. I'm not going anywhere without you. He looked past Mason to Danielle. Come on, baby. We talked about this. You said you were ready to leave him. That was before. Before what? Before he found out? So what? Duck him. Let's go. She's not going anywhere with you, Mason said. Jay's attention snapped back to him. And you're gonna stop me? If I have to. Jay swung wild, telegraphing the punch from a mile away. Mason ducked easily, came up inside Jay's guard and drove his elbow into the bigger man's ribs. Jay grunted, stumbled sideways, and Mason followed up with a knee to his thigh. Jay went down hard, his leg buckling. Mason stepped back, breathing easily. Stay down, he said. But Jay was getting up, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. You got lucky? You little... He charged, head down like a bull. Mason sidestepped at the last second, grabbed Jay's shirt, and used his momentum to send him crashing into the porch railing. Wood splintered. Jay hit the ground and didn't get up immediately. Had enough? Mason asked. Jay rolled over, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Mason pulled out his phone and showed Jay the screen. It was recording. I've got you drunk on my property, threatening my wife, throwing punches. That's assault, trespassing, and harassment. Want me to call the cops, or are you going to walk away? Jay stared at the phone, processing. Even drunk, he understood the situation. He was ducked. This isn't over, he repeated, but the fight had gone out of him. Yes, it is, Mason said. Don't come back here. Don't call her. Don't text her. Don't even look in her direction. If I see you within 100 yards of my wife, I'll have you arrested. Jay struggled to his feet, using the broken railing for support. She doesn't love you, he said. She told me, I don't care what she told you. I care what I'm telling you right now. Stay away from her. Jay looked past Mason to Danielle. Tell him you want to come with me. Danielle was crying again, but she shook her head. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. Something broke in Jay's eyes. You bitch, you lying bitch. You said, watch your mouth, Mason said quietly. Jay looked at him, then at Danielle, then back at him. Duck both of you. You deserve each other. He stumbled down the porch steps and disappeared into the night. Mason watched until he was sure Jay was gone, then went back inside. Danielle was sitting on the couch, shaking. Is he gone? Yeah, he's gone. What if he comes back? He won't. How can you be sure? Mason sat down beside her, because he's not stupid. He knows he's beaten. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Danielle spoke. You were incredible out there. I've never seen you like that. Like what? Strong, confident, in control. Mason looked at her. Is that what it takes? For you to see me as a man, I have to beat up your boyfriend? He wasn't my boyfriend. Not really. What was he then? A mistake, a huge, stupid mistake. Mason stood up. I need to pack some things. Where are you going? Hotel. I told you I want a divorce. But you just fought for me. You protected me. I protected my home. There's a difference. Danielle watched him walk toward the stairs. Mason? He stopped. What? I really am sorry. For all of it? Mason looked back at her. His wife of 3 years, the woman he'd thought he'd spend his life with, sitting on their couch in the house they'd bought together, crying over a bartender who'd used her and thrown her away. I know, he said, but sorry doesn't fix this. 2 weeks later, Mason was sitting in a lawyer's office, signing divorce papers. Danielle had agreed to everything without a fight. She'd keep the house. Mason didn't want it anymore. Too many bad memories. She'd keep most of the furniture, the joint accounts, even the car. All Mason wanted was his freedom. You're being very generous, his lawyer said. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. Mason had already moved into a new apartment across town, furnished it with new everything, new bed, new couch, new dishes. He didn't want anything that reminded him of his old life. The lawyer gathered up the papers. These should be processed within 30 days. You'll be officially divorced by the end of the month. Good. Mason walked out of the office feeling lighter than he had in years. On the street, he pulled out his phone and called Rochelle. It's done, he said. How does it feel? Like freedom. Want to celebrate? I know a good bar. Mason laughed. Not O'Malley's, I hope. God, no. That place went out of business last week. Turns out Jay wasn't the only one stealing from the register. What happened to him? Heard he left town. Something about owing money to the wrong people. Mason felt a moment of satisfaction. Jay Knox had destroyed himself exactly as planned. All Mason had done was give him the rope. "So about that drink," Rochelle said. "Rain check. I've got plans." "Hot date?" "Something like that." Mason hung up and drove to the gym. Tommy was waiting for him, as always. "Heard your divorce went through," Tommy said. "News travels fast." "Small town. How you holding up?" Mason looked at himself in the mirror. 3 months ago, he'd been a different person. Weak, passive, someone who let other people walk all over him. Now he saw someone else entirely, someone who could take care of himself. "I'm good," he said. "Actually, I'm better than good." "What's next for you?" Mason smiled. "Whatever I want." As he worked out, Mason thought about the future. For the first time in years, it felt wide open, full of possibilities. He was 31 years old, in the best shape of his life, with no one to answer to but himself. Danielle could have her safe, boring life. Jay could have his problems and his regrets. Mason was done with both of them. He was ready to find out who he really was when no one was holding him back. 3 months later, Mason was having coffee at a new place downtown when he saw her. Danielle sitting alone at a corner table, staring at her phone. She looked older, tired. The spark that had attracted him to her in the first place was gone. She looked up and saw him watching. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the cafe. Then she stood up and walked over. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can I sit?" Mason gestured to the empty chair. "Free country." She sat down, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "You look good. Different." "Thanks. I heard you got promoted at work." "News travels fast." "It's a small town." She paused. "I also heard you're seeing someone." Mason didn't respond. It was true. He'd been dating a teacher named Sarah for the past month, someone who didn't know his history, who saw him as he was now instead of who he used to be. "I miss you," Danielle said quietly. "Do you?" "Every day." "I know I don't have the right to say that, but I do." Mason studied her face. "How's Jay?" Danielle flinched. "I don't know. I haven't talked to him since that night at the house." "That's probably for the best." "Mason, I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I need you to know something. What happened with him? It wasn't real. It was just escape. Fantasy. I was bored with my life, and he made me feel exciting, but it wasn't love. And what we had was, yes, what we had was real, solid. I was just too stupid to appreciate it." Mason finished his coffee. "You're right about one thing. I won't forgive you, not because I'm holding a grudge, but because there's nothing to forgive anymore. You made a choice. I made a choice. We both have to live with the consequences. But don't you think?" "No." Mason stood up. "I don't think we should try again. I don't think we're meant to be together. I don't think about you at all anymore." The last part wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. Mason had moved on in ways he wouldn't have thought possible 6 months ago. "I should go," he said. Danielle nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Take care of yourself." "Always do." Mason walked outside into the bright afternoon sun. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah asking if he wanted to have dinner. He typed back yes, then put the phone away and got in his car. As he drove away, he caught a glimpse of Danielle in his rearview mirror, still sitting in the cafe, crying into her coffee. Once upon a time, that sight would have broken his heart. Now it just reminded him how far he'd come. Mason Teller had learned the most important lesson a man could learn, that dignity wasn't something you were born with or given by other people. It was something you carved out for yourself, piece by piece, choice by choice. And once you had it, no one could ever take it away from you again. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Mason got a call from Rochelle. "Guess who's back in town?" she said. "I don't really care anymore." "Jay Knox." "And he's telling everyone who'll listen about how you set him up, how you destroyed his life." Mason was quiet for a moment. "Is he looking for trouble?" "Hard to say. He's been drinking pretty heavily, lost about 30 pounds. Looks like hell." "Where's he staying?" "Motel out by the highway, the same one where he used to take your wife." Mason felt a familiar coldness settle in his chest. "Thanks for the heads up. You going to do anything about it?" "I'm going to finish what we started." That night, Mason drove to the motel. He found Jay's room and knocked on the door. It took several minutes, but eventually Jay answered. He looked exactly like Rochelle had described, gaunt, hollow-eyed, desperate. Well, well, Jay said, if it isn't the mastermind himself, we need to talk. Nothing to talk about. You got what you wanted. I lost everything. You lost everything because you're a thief and a liar. I just made sure people found out about it. Jay laughed bitterly. You think you're so smart? You think you won? I did win. Really? Because from where I'm standing, you lost your wife, your house, your whole life. How is that winning? Mason stepped into the room. It was an a-hole, stained carpet, broken furniture, the smell of failure and desperation. I lost things I thought I wanted, Mason said. Turns out I was wrong about what I wanted. And what do you want now? To make sure you understand something, you're done here. This town, these people, they're not for you anymore. Time to move on. Or what? You'll destroy me again? Jay, look around. Look at yourself. You're already destroyed. I'm giving you a chance to start over somewhere else. Jay sat down on the bed, suddenly looking very tired. You have no idea what you did to me. I know exactly what I did. I held up a mirror and made sure everyone could see what you really are. I loved her. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of taking something that belonged to someone else. You loved the thrill of the secret. But you didn't love Danielle. Jay looked up at him. And you did. Mason thought about it. I thought I did. But love doesn't survive what she did to it, what you both did to it. So, we all lost. No, you lost. Danielle lost, I won. How do you figure? Mason looked around the motel room one more time. Because I'm not here anymore. I'm somewhere better. He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. There's a bus leaving for Chicago tomorrow morning at 10. Be on it. And if I'm not, Mason looked back at him. Then we'll have this conversation again. And next time, it won't be nearly as friendly. The next morning, Mason drove past the bus station. Through the window, he could see Jay Knox sitting in the back row, staring out at the town he was leaving behind. The bus pulled away at exactly 10 o'clock. Mason never saw him again. That afternoon, Mason met Sarah for lunch. She was telling him about her students, about a field trip they were planning, about her weekend plans. Normal things. Good things. Things that had nothing to do with revenge or betrayal or the person he used to be. You're quiet today, she said. Just thinking. About what? Mason looked at her, really looked at her. Sarah was nothing like Danielle. She was honest, straightforward, comfortable with herself. She didn't need drama or excitement to feel alive. She found joy in simple things. About how different my life is now, he said. Different how? Better. Much better. Sarah smiled. Good different or bad different? The best different. That night, Mason stood on the balcony of his apartment looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Danielle was probably sitting in their old house, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. Somewhere else, Jay Knox was on a bus to nowhere, running from the consequences of his own choices. And here was Mason Teller, 31 years old, free for the first time in his life, with a future that belonged entirely to him. He thought about the man he used to be, quiet, passive, afraid of conflict. That man was gone, as completely as if he'd never existed. In his place was someone stronger, someone who understood that respect wasn't given, it was earned. Someone who knew the difference between being nice and being weak. Someone who would never be anyone's victim again. Mason smiled to himself and went back inside. Tomorrow was a new day, and he had plans to make.